Your mind may already know what you want, and your nervous system may already feel safer than it used to. And your clarity may already be strong. And yet you might still be taking action from an old identity, hustle culture. Today, I will talk about the difference between hustle action and embodied action, and why working harder is not the same thing as moving forward once you have already done the inner work. So let's begin. Welcome to the Expansion Room. This is the place where inner work meets impact, and I am your host, Shervon Laurice. And over the last couple of months, we have been taking somewhat of a dive into topics like what it means to make embodied decisions, how to regulate your nervous system for change when you've made those decisions, and how to move in alignment with your decisions. And we also talked about how integration is necessary for your embodied expansion. And so all of those things work together. So when we think about our goals and how to move them forward, especially if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, or a leader in an organization or company, we often think about goals. We often think about what it is that we want somewhere in the future to achieve, and what are the steps that we need to take in order to get there. And in our culture, right, we then, from those decisions that we make, need to take action. And we must remember, especially here in Western culture, that our world is set up with masculine energy. That a lot of what we see in business, whether that's for-profit, even nonprofits, in leadership, in entrepreneurship, in creating something to bring to market, we oftentimes are trained or groomed or even mentored to move in a certain way in our actions. And our actions are often dictated by how many of those goals have we achieved. And this starts to create for a lot of people a hustle mindset, as well as a competition mindset. But today we're going to talk about hustle culture. Now, why does hustle action or hustle culture still feel normal for so many of us, right, in these spaces? Even when you've started to make the shift of more awareness, self-awareness, embodied decisions, moving our thought processes and decision-making processes into alignment. And last time we were here in this space of the Expansion Room, we talked about integration, how to bring all these parts together as you move forward. We live in a culture that has trained us all, entrepreneurs and everybody else alike, to believe that progress must feel like pressure. So that if you don't feel pressure, if it feels easeful, then you're probably doing it wrong, right? When people ask, and I live in Maryland, just outside of DC. So I'm within that what they call the DC Beltway area. I'm just north of it. And when people often meet each other or see each other or introduce each other, there's often this question of, hey, how are you doing? And people often say, oh, I'm busy. I've got a lot going on right now. And it almost seems like if you don't answer in that way, that something might be wrong with you. So when people see that things have slowed down for them, they assume that something is wrong. If momentum dips in any sort of way, we assume that we're failing. If clarity is present but action feels tender, we assume that we need to push ourselves past that feeling. Hustle culture and hustle action have developed in our culture for a reason. It has helped many of us survive. When you think about it, before people really started working on their mental headspace, their mindset, and the way they see themselves and the way they see the world around them and how they move in the world, it was really about taking action. It was really about putting yourself out there, was always the phrase that I remember hearing, especially for those who tended to be more on the introverted side. You have to put yourself out there. While that is true to some extent, we do not have to push ourselves in such a way that does not honor who we are. It has helped us all to stay productive, this hustle action and this hustle culture, when we didn't always feel safe. It rewards urgency, output, in this idea of constant movement. In this modern times, constant movement could be constant posting, always being on social media, always popping up in front of people. And that is kind of hard to do I feel on a regular basis. It's nice to have little breaks from being on a screen. Hustle action is not a personality trait, nor should it be. It is a nervous system strategy, right? We feel a little bit of anxiety, fear of missing out, right? Fear of not reaching a certain goal that we may have set for ourselves. And that energy creates a little bit of anxiety, always humming in the background for us. And it is what action looks like when our system believes that safety comes from steady busyness, staying ahead, staying in control. This matters because many people begin healing, regulating their nervous systems, coming into alignment with their beliefs and their dreams and their desires, but they keep using the same action strategy that has been they've been building with for years, right? They've used an action strategy that has helped them to build maybe a business or their careers or their lives to this point, but at what cost, right? Is this the strategy you still want to use in your becoming this new identity? So what embodied action really is, it is not passive. So sometimes people think if you're not hustling, if you're not working long hours, if you're not in front of people all the time, constantly promoting yourself or moving towards a goal, then you're passive, maybe even considered weak in the business world. But embodied action in and of itself is not passive. It's not slower because you're avoiding growth or expansion. It's slower to most people because your nervous system is included in the decision-making process. That's all it is. It's this idea of not moving for action's sake. It's action where you slow down and turn inward and check in with yourself to say, is this action in accordance with what I really want? In accordance with what I really need at this time? Embodied action emerges from a regulated nervous system. It reflects your new identity rather than trying to create one. It feels internally coherent. It doesn't require a constant self-justification, right? It is paced in a way that your body can remain present inside, right? So think about that. It's paced to your liking, to your desire, right? It is paced so that your body can remain inside of that action, that your central nervous system feels coherent and you don't feel like you're moving towards or careening towards burnout, stress, overload, or overwhelm. And so that is what embodied action is. And so it takes hustle culture out of the picture. So here's a simple distinction. Hustle action asks you, what do I need to do in order to achieve this goal? That's hustle action. What do I need to do in order to achieve this goal? Embodied action asks, who am I now? And who is being asked to emerge in order for this vision to become reality? Who is being asked to emerge in order for this vision to become reality? It slows you down a bit. That action taken from a new decision is stepping into new identity. And so when I think about the emerging of a new identity, I think about the shift and the transition that I have made since the pandemic in the work that I do in the world and what I stepped into in coaching and working with people in a different way after the pandemic. And that was a question that I had to ask myself in different ways. Because if I was stepping into this new identity as a coach, while I had many years of psychotherapy experience, the coaching skills were just a little bit different. And I could not approach it in the same way that I approach building a psychotherapy practice. And so there needed to be a shift for me. And I needed to let go of hustle mindset, hustle culture that got me to where I was in my private practice. There was so much that always had to go on in the background of a private practice to keep it moving forward, to engage with new clients, to help move older clients along. And there was always this mindset that I could not stop moving. The pandemic, though, however, caused me to have to stop moving, like a lot of us. And so it helped me to rethink my mindset about what I put out into the world, what I offer, the kind of impact that I want to have. And so hustle action or hustle culture had to take a back seat for me. And I needed to embody this new idea of myself, this new decision to offer something new in the world. And to embody that meant I needed to check in with myself before I take big actions. I needed to tune in to what was going on in my central nervous system before I take big action and during taking big action, right? That if I needed to make a shift, even in the middle of something, I would now need to take that shift. So taking action from a new identity is so pivotal to one's expansion. Once alignment is clear, one of the most powerful questions that you can ask yourself is, if I already had the success I envision, how would I move today? If I already had the success I envision, how would I move today? What actions would I take today? What decisions would I make today? How would I lead? How would I take action from that place that I already envision? How would that space that I'm envisioning feel in order for me to take the most aligned action from that space? And so that is a powerful way to start to move about the world. This question changes your behavior without you forcing it, right? Here we are in February of a new year, and oftentimes New Year's resolutions have already started to fall off for people because forcing change is not comfortable. It is not where people want to be. And so the question changes your behavior without forcing it. It makes it feel like it is natural, almost inevitable. It collapses time psychologically, and it shifts action from proving to expressing, right? You move from proving in your actions to expressing your new truth, your decision that you've made in your life, your new identity, your new way of seeing yourself. It allows your future identity to shape your present behavior. And so this is not pretending. So some people are like, well, is this more fake it till you make it? No, this is not pretending. This is not bypassing. This is not skipping steps. This is really about you allowing your nervous system to begin living inside your new identity, inside who you are growing into. And so that is a huge step, right? We talked in a previous episode about integration, allowing your nervous system to catch up with the decision that you've made and align with your new identity. And so in this, right, letting go of hustle culture, that carries forward to embodied action. Now, for some people, embodied action can feel uncomfortable at first. It's new, right? You're choosing to step into something brand new. I had a very funny experience this morning, and I had to really laugh at myself because I have an iPhone. And if you have an iPhone, you know that periodically they push out a new update on us. And every time an update comes out, and I mean, I've had an iPhone for years, every time an update comes out, I delay it, I avoid it. Apparently, where I keep my phone at night in my home to charge, it does not automatically do the update. I guess I can't get a signal in that space. And so every time the question pops up on my phone while I'm in my waking hours, I avoid it. I delay it. Mostly because I feel like, what's going to be new? Is it going to be useful or annoying? Is it going to be something that is a benefit to me? Oftentimes the updates seemed like they didn't really do anything for me. And so I usually delay it until they force me to do it. And so today they kind of forced me to do it. And so I consented and I went ahead and did the update. And I realized almost immediately that I liked a couple of the things that I saw that popped up instantly. And a couple other things were actually useful. And so I had to chuckle because I realized that for many of us, this is how we approach something new. This is how we approach a shift, either a shift that's being, forced on us, or one that we have implemented or are trying to implement in our lives or in our businesses. We resist. And what does that resistance get us in the end, right? What is that doing for us or not doing for us? And in a lot of ways, that stepping into a new identity can come from a place of resistance within us, or it can come with openness and ease. Which are we choosing? Right? And so when we are in resistance, we open space for hustle culture, hustle action to take root and stay. When we are in the space of easefulness, right, then we can step more easily into embodied action. Now, embodied action can, in the beginning, feel a little uncomfortable. That is okay. If that is something that you feel but did not expect, just know that it is okay. It feels uncomfortable because really, hustle culture is the norm for us. We are used to taking action in that way. The feeling of uncomfortableness with embodied action is not wrong, it's just new. And it removes the adrenaline. So think about it. When we're in that hustle mind state, and action state, there's something very addictive about the adrenaline rush that we all get. The adrenaline that many of our central nervous systems have learned to rely on. And for some people, if they don't feel that adrenaline, they don't feel like they're doing it right. They don't feel the adrenaline, they feel like they're doing it wrong. Or maybe that they don't want it enough. And none of those things are true. There is less urgency, less pressure, and there is less external validation when we are moving from embodied action than when we are in hustle culture. There is more visibility and more responsibility for self-trust, right? When we are in the embodied action space, we build self-trust. There's more of an emotional and, dare I say, intuitive presence when we are in embodied action. You really turn inward to ask yourself the questions that you need to ask. And in doing so, you listen inwardly for those intuitive answers. Hustle keeps you busy. We all know that feeling, right? We all answer that way when people ask us, how are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. That seems to be like the badge of honor these days. But embodiment keeps you honest. Honest with yourself, and helps you to build trust with yourself. So how can you feel the difference in your body between hustle action and embodied action? And so here is a simple contrast to help you feel and realize the difference in your body in real time. Hustle action often feels like pushing through hesitation, right? So think about it. If you've ever made a decision, but then hesitated, right? And we remember in previous episodes, we talked about when you make an embodied decision and then suddenly feel some hesitation, it's not wrong, the decision that you made. It's your central nervous system putting up its antennas and saying like, hey, so what is this about? And maybe can we talk about this before we move forward and do anything? Because your central nervous system often needs time to catch up to your new decision, your new identity. Ignoring internal cues is another way to know whether or not you're in hustle action. Internal cues can look anything like, let's see, how you might have a churning in your stomach, where a spike of fear may come up, or whenever you're in a push to go forward and do something, but from hustle action, you wind up getting sick before an important launch or date, or you do all these things and then your body collapses after. Internal cues. Needing certainty before moving forward is another cue. And explaining or defending your decisions. Collapsing when momentum slows is another. And so some simple cues for embodied action often feels like grounded clarity without a sense of urgency or pressure. Action that matches your capacity. Fewer moves with more impact, right? Doing less than you normally would be doing, but creating a greater impact in what it is you've chosen to do. Decisions that do not need defending of any kind. And a steadiness in moving forward without burnout. The absence of pressure does not mean there's an absence of power. Remember that. The absence of pressure does not mean that there's an absence of power in the decisions that you've made or in the actions that you're taking if you're moving from embodied action. Embodied action is conscious leadership. When you move from embodied action, you move differently. You lead differently. You create differently. You model regulation in your own life, in your own existence, and to the people all around you. You create stability in your energetic field. You attract clients and collaborators and people in your life who are ready to connect with you at that same level, at that same frequency. They are not bringing a whole bunch of drama or frenetic energy into your life. You build something sustainable instead of simply impressive for the moment. And so this is action that reflects who you are becoming, the person who you're meant to be in the world to have greater impact. You are not taking action in a way that looks like it is rehearsed or from a place of burnout or from a place of who you were trained, quote unquote, to be. So in thinking about the difference between hustle action, which is rooted in hustle culture, and embodied action, which is rooted in embodied expansion, where do you feel like you most want to be? I want to invite you to really think about your next steps and how you want to show up in your life and in your leadership. So as you're listening to this, I invite you now to take a breath with me. And let there be a long, slow exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And as you settle here, you're invited to gently ask yourself, if I already trusted myself, if I already had the success I envision, if I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone, how would I move today? How would I move this week? What embodied actions would I take as I move forward? And what would I stop forcing in those spaces? What would I finally allow to be simple, easeful? And as you breathe here and allow that set of questions to take root in you, listen for the answer. Feel for the answer. Let the answer come to you not just in your mind, but in your body. Let it bubble up to the surface. Take a moment to jot down those answers. And allow yourself to start to take embodied action in your day-to-day life with your personal relationships and your business relationships, in your workspace, in your decision making for your business, or in your leadership roles. Allow embodied action. Check in with yourself. Slow down just a little. And if you are feeling dead tired, exhausted at the end of every single day, then you might be moving from hustle action and still embodying a space of hustle culture. And so you can take these shifts and changes in increments. It may not happen all in one fell swoop, all overnight. But if you start asking yourself good questions about the actions that you're taking and the direction that you want to go, you can shift this in a big way. So this is the kind of work I love offering to the world. It's the kind of work we do that deepens these ideas in my expansion room community, which we host on the Circle platform, where we have these kinds of discussions, and also in my Elevate coaching program. I don't offer these as more strategy, just as new relationships with action itself, new relationships with yourself. Because when action comes from an embodied space, it becomes sustainable for you. It becomes magnetic for you. It becomes your truth. And so if you feel like you would like some support in these kinds of ways of making embodied decisions, coming into alignment with your own ideas and beliefs and desires and what you envision for your life moving ahead, some support around integration and in taking embodied action, step into the show notes and reach out, and we'll get you connected in that way and find out what's the best way forward for you. So until next time, I thank you for stepping into the expansion with me this week, the expansion room with me this week, and I hope to see you here next week. Take care.